All right, welcome back. Before we jump into this episode, I want to give you a little bit of an update. If you follow this channel at all, you know it's been probably 4 or 5 weeks since I posted a video. The main reason for that is we had a bunch of stuff going on in our family. I had my oldest son buy a house, and so we spent a week painting and putting flooring in. My middle son the next weekend got married, and then the weekend after that I was moving my 2 youngest kids into college. So it's been a busy season. The first part of this video that you're going to watch of this episode was actually recorded probably 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks ago. And then there's a point in the middle of it where I'm actually getting back in the garage after all of that stuff. Good news is it allowed me to move a lot of stuff out of the garage and get it cleaned up. I feel like I got a lot more space. So I'm ready to jump back into working on this car. So enjoy this episode.
All right, welcome back. In this episode, the whole goal is to be able to put this panel, this rear quarter panel on. And I've been working on this patch. In order to be able to do that, I've got to fix this first because I got to figure out where it's going to line up. This has been a tough one. This has taken all morning, but it's necessary to get this thing done. So let me break it down for you and show you how I did it. So what I did is I started with a scrap piece of metal. It's actually the piece that I cut off over on this side. And I knew that one of the first things I needed to do was get this curve to the body, this flow down this curve right here. So I knew that this had to be concave that way. So you can kind of see it a little bit there. So what I did, I took this piece of metal when it was flat over to the vise and laid it down flat and hit it with a ball peen hammer. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this was a matter of laying the piece out when it's flat and hitting it, just kind of working it back and forth to stretch that metal, using the rounded part of the ball peen hammer, and just keep working it until I got the curvature that I wanted. So what makes creating this patch difficult is there's this natural curve to the back end of the car, and you want the patch panel to match that, but it also is crowning this way and dipping down before it comes to a point here at the top, and you've got to get this curve as well. Maybe you could do it in one piece, but I just decided I would try to do it in a couple of pieces. Originally, I was trying to do it in one piece here, and then one piece here, and then weld on the edge. And I ended up fiddling with it too much, and ended up with this panel too short. So I just put a piece in there that's going to, connect the two. So once I got this piece, and I used my crimping tool to try to match this crimp that's along this edge, and I may end up doing that on this panel too. I went ahead and tack welded this one in so it was there. Then I worked on this piece for a while. This was took a long time, this piece, because you've got to get this curve, but you also have to get this taper down. Once I got it in place, I went ahead and tacked it in, and then I was able to put the piece in the middle, but even that had to have a little curve to it. It wasn't straight, a curve this way, but then also a curve going this way. I then I'll move the camera over. I went ahead and put this end piece on it to match up with this, and I think I've got to trim it down a little bit because it's too long, because it's making this curve not exactly the way I want it. But once I cut it down, this will drop and it'll make this curve exactly the way I want it. So now that I have these pieces all put together, I'm going to go ahead and cut them back off. I'll just cut through these spot welds, these 4 spot welds here, these little tack welds. I'll take this piece off and I'll completely weld it so that it's one piece, grind it all down, that it's one piece, trim all this, and clean it all up, and then I'll be able to tack it in. But this piece, just creating all those bends, it took a long time, took all morning. So right now I'm going to go ahead and cut these off, finish tacking them up and welding them all the way and cleaning them up, and then seeing how it fits. Okay, so here, I'll go over this way. Here is the piece. It's all welded in. I've got to go down and grind it smooth. And we'll clean off this edge so that it's straight the way it should be. I tried to keep this edge straight because the other one's got to be able to match up to it. So let me take a few minutes and clean this off and let's see how it looks. Okay, after welding it in and grinding it smooth, this is the final product. And I feel like it turned out pretty good. There's a couple of spots. I've got to fix this little spot right here to finish off this curve because I didn't weld it all the way. But for the most part, I feel like it's pretty good. I've got to smooth out a couple of the little curves, but as far as the patch panel coming out, the way it came out, I'm fairly pleased with it. It looks like everything rolls the way I want it to. Now that that part's finished, I'm going to have to move to fixing this hole right here. The good part about it is I'll get to flip the car over to work on that part. Okay, now that we have this piece where I want it to be for the most part, let's go ahead and roll the car over and get started on the patch that I've got to do on the front for the rear quarter panel. All right, I'll switch everything over, push the car over to the side so I've got more room over there, and we'll get started on fixing it. So this is what we're gonna work on, is patching this piece. So one of the things I need to do is go over, look on the other side, because I'm pretty sure, if I remember, there's a tab that basically attaches to this outer sill. And so we're gonna need to duplicate that so that it looks right. So let's walk around the other side and see what that looks like. So there is a tab right here, and when I made this repair, when I installed the inner sill for this side, it's one of the things I still have to go back and pound this out flat. So I'll do that too while I'm in here doing the other side. I'll fix this. So there is a little tab. I do think it goes down straight, and it's got a little bit of a ridge to it. So we're gonna try to duplicate that as well. So let's go ahead and start mocking up what that piece is gonna look like, get it cut, and see if we can get this thing in there. So I cut out the rust spot and cleaned it up, and now I've got a piece of like thin cardboard that I'm using to just kind of mock up what the patch piece is going to look like. And now what I'll do is I'll put that over on a piece of metal, cut it all out, put that little, hopefully try to put that little flange piece in there, which is what this line represents. You can kind of see this line going down. See if I can put that in there too. And that'll take a little bit of time, and then we'll see if we can get it welded in. Okay, so I have this piece sized up and ready to go. I'll probably have to grind on it a little bit just to get it to fit exactly, but I even got the little flange cut in it to match up. I think that lines up and rolls the way I want it to go. So I'm gonna fire up the welder and tack this thing in and see what it looks like, and then hopefully finish it off. So let me show you how I went about making this flange on there. It's wider than if I use the flange tool, it doesn't reach that far, so it wouldn't be wide enough. So basically what I did is I started with the piece. I had marked a line where it needed to be, and I took and laid it on this piece of metal, and then I took another piece of flat metal that was just happened to be almost exactly the same length, held it on there, and then just gave it some really hard whacks with a hammer, and that actually stretched the metal enough to put that little line through there. Now what I was using was, honestly, this is a old mower blade that I wasn't using anymore, and I'm going to use it for something else later, but I had basically cut it to get a straight piece because I'm going to create a tool that I'm going to use for rounding pieces of metal. But I laid it on, hit it a couple of times really hard to get it going, and then I had to take it over onto the anvil to kind of flatten it back out, because obviously it didn't just push it straight down. It would have bent it up a little bit, and so I used that to flatten it out. Worked out pretty good. It's about the same depth as what's on the car. So I'm gonna see if I can get this lined up and get it welded in. All right, so I have it welded in and grinded it off. You can see the little taper there, which is what I wanted. I'm not going to attach this to this outer sill yet, because I want this to have some flexibility when I go to put the rear quarter panel on. But that's it, and I'm ready to start moving in that direction. So
Okay, so I spent the morning dry fitting this panel in a couple of times, and once I started feeling like I was getting it in a good spot, like I was getting close, I went ahead and started prepping the panel, which I still need to spray some weld through primer on it, but I had to basically clean off all the primer that's on it, because I know I'm getting close to the point where I want to basically lock it in place and start welding it. The other thing I had to do was prep the car too for where it's going to make a connection. Now, I've seen online, as you probably have as well, this strategy of going along and tack welding and then using a cutting wheel and cutting it, and then that actually makes the joint come together. I don't know that I'm gonna do that at this point. I think I'm gonna basically draw a line and cut the body to get this to match up as close as I can. I think I can draw a pretty solid line, go along with the cutting wheel, and get it to match up. So I think that's what I'm going to try for right now. I also need to go along and just kind of identify some spots that I'm going to spot weld, because at some point in time I'm going to have to take the flange or that like hole cutting tool and go ahead and pop all the holes in it. I want to get it to the point where once I have it in there and it's ready to go, I can just start welding it in all the places to get it in there. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm gonna go ahead and draw this line across, and then take it back off, cut that, and then line it all back up again and see how it lines up. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, I have the panel welded in, and I already started grinding off the weld. Man, kind of found out that when you haven't welded for a while, you definitely get out of practice. So just kind of working from one end and then going to the other just to keep the panel from getting too hot. So I'll keep cleaning all of this off. I'll have to go around and do all of the ones in the wheel well. I've already kind of done the ones on the end here, and I'll have to do these as well. And once I do that, this panel should be in.